That was the Chief Medical Officer, Dr. Sharon Belmont-George. They're speaking on the latest cases registered here on island of COVID-19. Case 79, a 44-year-old male from the Babonneau district. Case number 80 is a 33-year-old female from the Vieux Fort district. We have case number 81, a 65-year-old female from Castries. Case number 82, a 4-year-old male from Vieux Fort. Case number 83, a 27-year-old female from Castries, and case number 84, a 62-year-old female from the Vieux Fort district. As we're proceeding into this new week, we have the Chief Medical Officer admonishing the general public to please have a level of awareness as you're going into your work environments, commuting via public transport, going into public spaces and transacting business or going through your routine activities for the week. Ensure that you have a level of awareness, ensure that you're adhering to the protocols, ensure that you are moving about as per the new advisories that have been issued by the government of St. Lucia on Friday. And speaking of which, given the current status of the active COVID-19 cases and the projections, even the new cases we saw this weekend, the government of St. Lucia has implemented new protocols in order to curb the spread of COVID-19, and it took effect on Friday, the 30th of October 2020, and is to remain in effect for the next 30 days. So for the month of November, we will be having more stricter, tightened protocols in light of these new cases and projections. On the recommendations of Dr. Belmont-George, the Command Center, and following a consultative session with the National Emergency Management Advisory Committee, NEMAC, and various stakeholders, the Cabinet of Ministers has implemented new measures to combat the spread of the virus in country. Among the measures is a call for employers to institute a work-from-home program. Prime Minister Honorable Alan Chastney elaborated on the measures during a national update on NTN that was on Friday. Take a look.
Most of our cases are on the northwestern zone and on the eastern zone, and over the last few days we've been noting cases in the south of the island going towards the western area as well. This gives an idea of how our cases have increased since the first case on the 13th of March. And if you notice in the last 3 epi weeks, the rate of increase has been at a much higher level as compared to earlier on in the outbreak. Okay, this is our community mapping for St. Lucia of the cases that we have seen so far. I think I've explained a bit of that already. This is an analysis of the OECS and associated members to indicate per our cases per 100,000, how we compare in comparison to earlier on in the outbreak. Initially, we were the lowest incidence in the region, and we are now at the 4th level compared to the rest of the OECS.
That was the CMO. They're speaking on the trends so far, not only on island, but also in the region. Just following up on the imploring of the Prime Minister for employers on island to institute work-from-home programs, schools will also be remaining closed for the month of November. And as we've seen, it's pretty much the end of year. They spent much of the term, the first term, at home. We're going into the Christmas season. They are to remain closed. However, there will be the measures being kicked in to ensure continued learning via blended learning approach. And this began earlier this year. Many of you are already familiar with the learning online, remote learning processes. Alcohol is permissible. However, it is a grab-and-go business at bars only. So individuals are discouraged. They're not allowed to congregate at bars, to socialize at the bars. You grab your drink and you go. All bars and restaurants are to be closed by 9 p.m. Dining is allowed at restaurants, but restricted to 25 patrons at any given time. There has been no order of a curfew. I repeat, there has been no order of a curfew coming from the government of St. Lucia. However, the public is advised, the public is encouraged to limit their movement during the hours 9 p.m. to 5 a.m. We're calling on the voluntary imposition of curfew at this time, pretty much. So let's go to the second clip from Friday's press conference.
All agencies and businesses should implement a blended service operations approach where possible for the employees. The approach should allow for the functioning of all services and operations utilizing online platforms and standard health protocol where feasible. This recommendation aims to reduce the physical numbers in the workplace and curb possible transmission. Reduced mass crowd events. Mass crowd events are reduced from 50 to 25 people per venue, per activity. No special provisions will be extended for ground, space, or structural provisions. Religious institutions. Religious institutions are to be guided by the square footage of their respective spaces. Each religious institution must be aware of how many people can access the building, but the maximum number of people of 100 for those institutions that are very large. Business operating hours. Cease all business operations and commercial activities by 9 p.m. Essentially, this will assert a minimal operations approach. Exemptions will be listed. This recommendation aims to discourage the physical spread of people during typical hours of high-risk business activity island-wide.
That was the Prime Minister, Honorable Alan Chastanet, there speaking on the new measures that have been instituted in response to the increased cases of community cases here on island of COVID-19. The hosting of any contact sports, high-risk sporting activities and events is discouraged. Non-contact sports will be listed and published in the coming days. So please take note of these measures. They have been put in place to protect our society, protect the population. We're seeing an increase in cases. Up till yesterday, we had 6 new cases of COVID-19. If you're just joining the live, good morning. We're now at 84 confirmed cases of COVID-19 here on island, and we hope that you are adhering to the protocols at this point in time, as we're seeing these clusters of cases in the various communities, in various districts, and it is important now more than ever before to adhere to the protocols. Use your face mask, adhere to the 6 foot physical distancing, using a hand sanitizer, washing your hands frequently. We can't stress these things enough. They are simple, very effective, very cheap ways of ensuring and reducing the risk of transmission here on island. These cases are popping up everywhere. We do not know who has what. And it is important as you're going out to work. Yes, the Honorable Prime Minister did appeal for work programs to be instituted where possible at various companies island-wide, but where it is not possible and you must go to work, we hope that you are ensuring that you adhere to the protocols. If you have to commute via public transport, if you're going into public spaces, you're entering businesses to transact and to go about your daily routine, we hope that you are in compliance. Right. At this point in time, we have a call from the director of NEMO, the National Emergency Management Organization. Miguel, is she on air with us now? Okay. Good morning to you, Mrs. Gustave, Mrs. Dorine Gustave, NEMO director.
Good morning, Jesse. Good morning, listeners.
Thank you so much for making this time today. If we could just open with the coming off of the NEMAC meeting and the conclusions. We're seeing that new measures have been instituted to help reduce the risk of transmission here on island. If you could just speak to us about that meeting and what is guiding NEMO right now in terms of your observations.
From the NEMAC meeting, a number of measures were put in place to ensure that we curb on the spread of the coronavirus on island. We are appealing to persons in a number of instances, especially to stay at home from 9 p.m. to 5 a.m. We also saw that there was measures put in place for bars to shut down from 8 p.m. and throughout the day that there will be no gathering at the bars. Persons will just take their drinks or whatever it is that they're ordering and leave. We know that didn't sit too well, but we're asking for these measures to be implemented for a period of a month while we observe what is happening. We got no reports. Usually we get a report that a bar is open here. Well, I personally got no reports from the district disaster committees who are on the ground that there were anybody who was violating those measures that have been put in place. So we would like to, at this moment, thank St. Lucians, those persons who are adhering. It is crunch time for us, and we're asking persons to please work with us in order to ensure that there is no further spread of the virus on island.
Thank you for that.
These are just a few of the measures that were put in place that I mentioned. School will be out for until the end of November. Supermarkets will be closing at 9 p.m. Other businesses from 8 p.m. And right now I don't have everything before me, Jesse, but I'm just speaking to those measures that were put in place so that you'll not see a congregation of persons. I think restaurants are to close from 8 p.m. also, yes. So these measures are just put in place so that we could work together in bringing the spread under control.
Okay. One of the questions I believe that were posed to the Honorable Prime Minister on Friday was why not a state of emergency? Why not a complete shutdown or more stringent measures than what have been instituted so far from Friday? And if we could go back, I know the April experience of the lockdown is etched in your mind as one of the administrators, but can you speak to what it would take at this point in time for us to re-enter that? Because the Prime Minister did indicate that it would be a mammoth task to revert to that point in time.
Okay, a state of emergency would have to be declared using the Emergency Powers Act. You see that came to an end at the end of October. September. It was, yeah. And to revert to that means that we would have to, again, find the finances to get those care packages out for those persons who are not able to take care of themselves, to feed themselves during that period. And it is a mammoth of a task, and I know what the Prime Minister is speaking to is to ensure that we continue the economic activities going whilst we are, as responsible citizens, play our part. I know persons are calling for a curfew, but a curfew cannot be instituted unless there is a state of emergency. And we have not gone to a state of emergency at this point. For this very reason that, it's going to take quite a bit from the state to have a lockdown at this moment.
Okay, Mrs. Gustave. We also saw heavy rains this past weekend. Many communities island-wide affected. What word are you getting at your office right now in terms of the extent of the impact of the weather system? And if you could just go over the preparations that NEMO has made. I know there was recently a regional effort toward dealing with the scenario of dealing with the pandemic and also with being within the Atlantic hurricane season.
Okay, on our part, we have been working with our district disaster committees, our partners, to ensure that we put measures in place in the event that we have a multi-hazard impact. And so we have pre-positioned supplies at the district level, such as PPEs, cleaning supplies. These are placed with the district disaster committees. We have also received a supply of mattress from the U.S. Embassy US Southcom. We with a proposal to them, and we were able to get over 200 mattresses from them. So these mattresses are propositioned in the event there is a need to open the shelters and persons are impacted also.
Okay.
We have that in place. Our district disaster committees are activated. We are in contact with them all the time. With the heavy rains over the weekend, which was expected because we did receive a warning of possible flooding because of the system that was coming our way. 4 days, almost 5 days of straight of rain. We expected that there would be flooding, and we did get reports from the various district disaster committees.
Okay. And just finally, if you could just tell us about the ongoing work aside from, the preparation, the readiness for the disaster strike that is ongoing. I know there have been conversations that are ongoing with regard to the COVID-19 situation.
Okay. Sorry, we are working hand in hand with the Ministry of Health. We have gotten members of our district disaster committee. Some of them have been trained in contact tracing to assist on the ground when the need or if the need arises. So there have been a call of persons trained by the Ministry of Health. We are continuing the discussion as to how we could collaborate, because it is a health emergency at this moment, and we take our cue from the Ministry of Health. So whenever they call upon us, we stand ready to assist. I want to go back to the reports, Jesse, if you don't mind, of the heavy rains over the weekend and the reports that I received. If we have the time, I could just go through it quickly.
Absolutely.
Of flooding and landslides. Do we have the time?
Yes, we do. Go ahead.
Okay. All right. So,
Or it's all yours.
From the Babono area in Debara, we got report that there was a road because of the landslide and heavy water from the hillside pouring onto that road was impassable, and it also caused some cracks in the road that's in Debara. In Louvet, there's a major landslide on a road. It is more a farming road where the farmers access to go to the farms. Chassin, there was reports of heavy flooding. And in Grosile, Beauséjour, there were 2 homes that were almost immersed. We had done some site visits in that area, and Ministry of Infrastructure was onto it. I know that they did some mitigation work, which worked very well in some areas, but they had not gotten to that area where these 2 homes. It's something that happens very often whenever it rains. There's a lot of water in that area. So these 2 homes were badly flooded. In Beauséjour, reports of minor flooding in other areas in Grosile, Castries Central, the usual flooding in the city. In Castries South, there was a fallen tree on the Millennium Highway. Let me pause for a while to say that as soon as the reports came in and we called the Ministry of Infrastructure, we would get report that it was already cleared. So they were on the ball, assessing the areas and getting rid of any obstruction on the roads. And if there were any homes that were under threat, they were already there, because I guess they too have their own network. So I want to say that they've done a fantastic job in during this heavy rains to ensure that persons are safe and the place is passable as much as possible. In Castries Southeast, there was a fallen tree in the junction of Bocage and Tiroshi, and that was cleared very quickly too. The Mac Bridge, I did some driving around to find out what was happening. By the time I got to Mac, they had already cleared the silt because there was a lot of silt on the bridge due to flooding in that area. It was not the kind of flooding that we would see, and I guess it's because of the mitigation measures that took place in Car Street Southeast Mac area, where they had the small drains project happening there. So that I was very pleased with. Minor landslides throughout. We had no major landslide except for Dennery area, where there was a major landslide onto the road in Lakai. And that was cleared very quickly also. I got a report from the parliamentary rep also who sent me images of landslide in Upper Olio. And the District Disaster Committee went on to assess it, and Ministry of Infrastructure was onto it also. The flooding in Richford, the perennial flooding in Dennery South, the village, is something that, we really need to work on trying to do some mitigation measures. It happens every time there is heavy rain, and I know the people in the village, they suffer quite a bit due to that, continuous flooding in the area. In Larissus, there was some flooding in Beaufort. No reports from Nikud North or South of any damage or flooding. In Labrie, there was just some flooding in the village, but there was no major damage due to that flooding. No reports of flooding or land slippage in Suazel, in Soufre, Canries, and Ancillary. There was no report from these areas. So again, I want to thank the team from infrastructure for being out there and really, ensuring that persons got the relief that they needed during this time of heavy rains on the island.
Thank you very much for that, Mrs. Gustave. Can you give us any contact information for persons who may have experienced anything, been affected by the weather system and it's not been reported yet?
There may be. I didn't hear that question.
No, I'm saying what's the number to contact if individuals might have experienced any had been affected negatively by the weather system and it has not yet been reported?
Okay, so they could call NEMO at 452-3802 or 468-2126.
2126. Okay. Okay. Any final words?
I'd just like to encourage St. Lucians to remain vigilant. We are still in the hurricane season. We are battling COVID. We do not want a situation where we get impacted by a hurricane. Persons have to visit the shelters. It's going to be a situation where even our volunteers may not want to put themselves at risk.
Right.
So we're asking persons to please work with us. Let us try to get the COVID spread on the island under control. Let us, as much as possible, play our parts and staying home if we do not need to go out. Observe the protocols. Please wear a mask. Wash your hands as often as possible. Sanitize. Let us play our parts and just remain vigilant. When you get the weather report, just pay attention to the weather report. And if you have any questions, you could always call NEMO to clarify anything.
Thank you very much for that. What's the NEMO headquarters looking like right now in terms of the level of activity?
Oh no, it's quiet.
Okay. Well, that's good.
If there was a curfew, then we would need to get the passes out there to persons. But we're saying that in terms of passes, as much as possible, we're going to approach it differently this time. We have been talking, I've been talking to the Deputy Commissioner of Police as to how we're going to approach it. So we need to keep persons safe, and also we need to do our duties as an organization. So we will inform the public if we need to cross that bridge, if we get there, as to how we are going to handle the passes.
If the need arises.
Yes?
If the need arises.
Yes, if the need arises.
Mrs. Dorine Gustave, Director at NEMO, thank you very much for that quick update there, just giving us a quick assessment of where St. Lucia is at coming off of the weather system this past weekend. Many areas affected, but we're seeing a quick response on the part of the authorities in dealing with many of the affected areas. The areas where you had a bit of land slippage, a bit of flooding, the efforts have been assiduous to ensure that we can get back to business as usual. If you were listening, she did give a number, 4682126. You can contact the NEMO office. If you have been affected but you've not yet informed anybody, if you've been displaced in any way due to the weather system, we are due for a break. Do stay with us. When we come back, we take a look at some more news.
Cette lisi ka registre vermin corona ek I ka fait mouvement ek an chay vitesse tan chaque canef ka kouye pour vigilance publique la fait wolo parler en place publique kon bol en main base ti boutique changer distance sociale 6 pieds Rodyon à l'autre. I ka travail tan, si ou senti ko pa cordial, quarantine ko, pas en contact et puis l'autre, en cas où te toi pe exposé. C'est un écouye, free one ou ben n'importe clinique yo pou. Les pays a 10 000 à clé, ça veut dire les supermarkets, pharmacies et puis ATM, yo accessible avant c'était souhait. Pays à clé en plein, ça veut dire tout bagay fermé à 24 heures. Servi protocole comme sorti par bureau indication santé. Nous tout ensemble, ça sauver vermine corona. Si nous tout servi jidla à toutes les.
Together let us win this war. St. Lucia be a soldier. Together we can beat this corona.
Thank you so much for staying with us. We're just coming off of an interview before we broke the program, speaking to Mrs. Dorine Gustave, giving us a status update on the situation here on island coming off of the weather system that we experienced. We're hearing of some ways, the various ways that the weather system impacted the various communities and areas on island. However, quick work on the part of the authorities to bring back some normalcy, clearing of the roads that have been blocked, what have you. The number you can call if you have been affected and you need some help at this point in time, because Mrs. Gustave did indicate that they do have some resources to help at this time. If you are in need, you can contact the number 468-2126. If you do have, if you're experiencing any issues with your home, if you've lost some items, you can contact them to hopefully get some assistance. We continue with this morning's program. The government of St. Lucia has thanked St. Lucians for their patience and understanding regarding the erection of a fence along the Radwe Beach. The fence was an additional security measure to address unauthorized beach entry and unauthorized exits as well at the nation's first COVID-19 quarantine facility in Rodney Bay. At the time, the CMO explained that there had been several breaches at the Rodney Bay facility due to the open beach access. The fence had to be erected after a number of other security measures proved inadequate, including increasing security personnel and the installation of cameras on the compound. Since the facility is no longer being used for quarantine, the fence was taken down a few weeks ago. The CMO has thanked the public for their cooperation.
This hotel, this establishment is no longer being used as a quarantine zone. That is from up to today. The fence has been promptly removed to to allow the public full access to the beach area. Any inconvenience is really regretted. However, public health and safety has been the priority of the Ministry of Health and Wellness. So, given that the threat to the public of coming into contact with persons who are in quarantine is no longer a threat, as it is no longer being used as a quarantine site, the fence has been very promptly removed to allow the public full access to that beach area.
And now some assistance, show of support toward the National Council on Public Transportation. The Minister with responsibility for culture and the creative industries, Senator the Honorable Fortuna Bell Rose, on Friday last week, personally contributed to the national fight to contain the spread of the virus. Senator Bell Rose made a check presentation to the NCOPT for the purchase of hand sanitizers and dispensers.
Hundreds of people ride the buses daily, and I think it's important for there to be ease of access in terms of having the protocols followed, within the bus route system. And that's why when I was approached by the Minibus Association for Cash Resist, it was easy to say yes, because that is a bus route that people take to come to my home. My children also take the buses, and so it's important for me to know that from a community standpoint, they're doing the right thing as well. And that is why it was important to provide the support to enable them to buy the machines so that all the buses, can be installed in all the buses, and that the citizens, can at least be sanitized when they enter. Because we expect most of them to have their mask anyway, or all of them to have their mask when they come in. But I think it's important for us as leaders in society to continue to set the example and support. And I just thought that this was one way, of making a statement with respect to supporting the community, the community with respect to combating corona.
That was the Senator the Honorable Fortuna Bell Rose. The NCOPT has committed to ensuring that it collaborates with other organizations to assist minibus operators in meeting the health and safety protocols. Teachers enrolled in an e-learning academy spearheaded by the Taiwan ICT in Educational Development Project in collaboration with the Sir Arthur Lewis Community College are being commended for taking on the initiative. A presentation was held at the Camdu Conference Room in Goodlands recently. At least 60 teachers are enrolled in an ongoing e-learning program, a collaborative effort of the Taiwan ICT in Education Development Project and the Sir Arthur Lewis Community College to better equip educators in the online instruction modality. One facilitator of the program, Dr. Kathy James Springer, says the teachers have already developed improved aptitude for technology during the course.
The way it is designed is that people get individual understanding themselves as an individual in this virtual environment, as well as looking at themselves as educators in the virtual environment. As much as it was very quickly delivered, but I get the sense that there's a lot of things that people didn't understand or didn't think about before we started, and now they're cognizant on it, and I can see that they're going to apply some of this to their life as well as to their classrooms.
E-learning specialist at the Sir Arthur Lewis Community College, Royston Emmanuel, believes the e-learning academy, as it has been dubbed, is a step in the right direction. While training teachers to teach by virtual means, Emmanuel says helping the teachers understand the learner's experience is also critical.
Now you have to plan a little more intimately, in more detail, but at the same time we're also asking our children to experience learning in a different way. And we might argue that, but they're always online, they're on the devices. Yeah, but when they're on the devices, their learning is very self-directed. They decide what they want to learn. They decide how they want to learn it. They decide when they learn, okay? And then we're transplanting a traditional system into this modality and expecting it to be okay immediately. No, it will not be okay immediately. And so the hope is that through the e-learning academy, we begin to understand who our 21st century learner is and how we better approach them.
Chief Education Officer Dr. Fiona Philip-Meyer thanked the government of Taiwan for their continued support for the sector and encouraged teachers to make the most of the chance to raise their profile as professionals.
Let us make use of such opportunities. In as much as we see that, okay, it is for our school and all of that, but it is really about our own personal growth. helping us do what we do better. And when such opportunities are presented to us, normally in another circumstance, it would have cost us so much to do it, to pay for it. But it is presented to us. So I'm really, really hoping that we make good use of those opportunities.
The teachers enrolled in the e-learning academy are now on the second module of the program. For the Government Information Service, I am Jessie Leonce reporting. And with that, we continue with more education news. The independent review team convened by the chairman of CARICOM Examinations Council, Professor Sir Hilary Beckles, has completed its report on the review of the modified approach for the administration of the July-August 2020 CSEC and CAPE examinations. More from Michelle Nurse of CARICOM News Time.
In the executive summary to the 46-page report, the team concluded that the modified approach CXC used for this year's examinations was appropriate and the best option given the circumstances. But the team found that more extensive communication between CXC and educators in particular would have helped to clarify any misunderstandings that may have existed about the administration of the modified approach. It added that the processes which CXC proposed to use for grading and moderation could have been better explained to its stakeholders. The team said all queries and requests for reviews by candidates should be urgently addressed by CXC to maintain the fidelity of the CSEC and CAPE examinations, as well as to take account of the fact that the continued education prospects of students are in abeyance over the uncertainty of their grades. The report makes 23 recommendations, 8 of which are for immediate implementation to address specific issues noted in the 2020 examinations. They include training for teachers on CXC standards and a better network between CXC and teachers. The report added that several issues within CXC and at schools related to the scoring of school-based assessments need to be addressed. You can read the full report at cxc.org.
That report there from Michelle Nurse of CARICOM News Time. The independent review team convened by the chairman of CARICOM Examinations Council, Professor Sir Hilary Beckles, has completed its report on the review of the modified approach for the administration of the July-August 2020 CSEC and CAPE exams. We're also seeing that there's an e-learning academy that has been established to ensure that our teachers here on island and within the region can become better equipped in terms of dealing with e-learning and online learning on the virtual platform. We are going to go to a break at this point in time. When we come back, our final segment for the morning.
With all that's happening around us, simple adjustments are necessary to keep us all safe. When calling 911, we may need a little more information to deploy the right personnel and protocols. You may be asked about your travel history, signs and symptoms, contact and movement history, and whether others in your household are exhibiting similar symptoms. Please be patient and cooperative during this time to ensure you receive the best possible care while keeping our first responders safe.
Thank you so much for staying tuned. Just some bulletin information before we wrap up for the morning. The Department of Economic Development, Transport and Civil Aviation has been closely monitoring the recent upsurge in the spread of COVID-19 in St. Lucia. Public health officials advise that in addition to practicing good personal hygiene, social distancing is the most effective strategy to prevent the spread of the virus. The safety of staff and clients at the Transport Division is of the utmost priority. In an effort to reduce the risk of further transmission, the public is hereby informed of the following. Please note, practical driving examinations will be suspended with effect from Friday, October 30th, 2020, until further notice. Theoretical examinations will be suspended with effect from Monday, November 9th, 2020, until further notice. Also, the public is encouraged to conduct transactions using the DigiGov portal. So if you want to renew your driver's license, then you can go on to the digigov.govt.lc to do so. To pay, at least, the Transport Division can be contacted via telephone number 468-6300, or you can email them at transport@govt.lc for any required assistance. And finally, the Department of Education, Innovation and Gender Relations is informing the public of the following. There is a 50% reduction in the fees for reviews of candidates who wrote the 2020 May-June examinations. Fees are now US $15 and must be paid through the purchase of a bank draft. Where a candidate submitted a request prior to this decision, a 50% refund will be given to those candidates whose reviews did not result in a grade change, and full refund for those who attained an improved grade. The deadline for the submission of requests for queries and reviews is 6th November 2020. The deadline for registration for January 2021 examinations has been extended to 11th November 2020. For further information, you can contact the Evaluation and Assessment Unit of the Department at 468-5222 or 5242 or 5243. With that, we wrap up for the morning. I'd like to thank you so much for watching. St. Lucia continues to register increases in COVID-19 cases within our communities. We hope that you are taking note of that, and we hope that you're taking it seriously. We're seeing cases emerging out of Viewfort, Micoud, Dennery, Castries, Grosile, Babonneau, and it is important right now, as you go about your day, you go to work, you're commuting, you're going to businesses to conduct business, to transact, that you are aware of your surroundings, aware of your own self in the space, ensuring that you use your mask as much as every time you're in public, for that matter. Use of hand sanitizers, washing your hands frequently with soap and water, and most of all, I think, observing the 6-foot distance. This is very important in mitigating the spread of COVID-19. It's very easy, it is very it's very cheap, and so it's something that has proven to be effective in mitigating the spread of the virus. Do stay tuned to NTN for more updates. We are keeping you abreast as to what's happening in St. Lucia. We have the 6 new cases of COVID-19, case number 79, 80, 81, 82, 83, 84 being registered yesterday. We have so far 84 cases of COVID-19 here on island. Please take note. This is serious business, and we hope you are playing your part. For the next 30 days, we have heightened measures, stricter measures, protocols being put in place, and there is no set curfew, but persons are advised to limit their activity between the hours 9 p.m. to 5 a.m. The government has implored businesses here on island, if you can, implement a work-from-home regime. Schools have been closed as well for the next 30 days. However, they are doing the online learning, the varied learning arrangements being made for students here on island. Please take note of all of these measures. Until we meet next time, do stay tuned for more NTN programming. My name is Jessie Leonce, signing off for now. Goodbye.